Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Rangers Journal podcast. My name's Scott Mackay, and I'm your host for this great interview we've got. I'm delighted today to be joined by Matt Mayoko, who works for NBC Sports Bay Area, and he's coming on to talk to us about the potential takeover with the 49ers into Glasgow Rangers. Cheers.
Every night is the Rangers Journal night.
Hi, Matt. How you doing? All right?
I'm doing great, Scott. Thanks for having me on your show.
No, thank you for coming on. Thank you for coming on. It's much appreciated. We've been looking for somebody to come on and tell us a wee bit about the 49ers for a wee while. So I'm glad that we've managed to get somebody so close that knows quite a bit about them. So thank you.
No, you're very welcome.
So there's a couple of questions that the Rangers supporter want to know about the 49ers, and one of them would be, what, in your opinion, has driven the 49ers enterprises to pursue a controlling stake in Rangers?
Well, the 49ers have tried to kind of diversify, and I think they felt like they had pretty good success, moving out of American football. Well, they still are. They own the San Francisco 49ers. They found a situation with Leeds United that kind of fit what they were looking for to stay in sports, but just, move across the pond a little bit and see if there was a situation there that worked for them. And what they found with Leeds United was an organization that had success in the past and maybe had been mismanaged, and they felt like there was a lot of room to grow, a lot of room to take their ideas of sports using analytics and just the business side of it and turn it into an organization that could potentially recapture the glory days. And just for a little background, Scott, when this current 49ers regime, and the person that I'm going to speak probably a lot about is Parag Marathe, a very good businessman. He runs the salary cap, all the financials with the 49ers as far as player, compensation, the analytics of it. When he took over the 49ers, San Francisco 49ers had been an organization with a lot of success in the past, but was going through some very difficult times, mismanaged. And so he saw a very direct correlation between what he had gone through with the 49ers and applying it to the Leeds model. And I see this as almost an identical situation,
Yeah.
going from the 49ers to Leeds to Rangers. So I think that's kind of the background of why the Rangers situation is something that the 49ers feel like they've been there, they've gone through it, they kind of know the formula. And I think it's why it's attractive to them as a business adventure.
How do you think it aligns with a broader investment strategy in sports?
Well, I do think that they feel like it's a gym. It's something that is a very good investment opportunity just because of the tradition and the history. So I don't know that any other football club out there lines up like this one does, in the sense that I mean, I'm sure you can talk on this, is just that how there is potential there and how that potential hasn't been realized, and the mismanagement part of it, and just kind of bringing some stability, making some wise financial decisions, improving the overall experience for the supporters of the football club. I think that all lines up with what the 49ers identified as a big reason, the big reasons why this can be successful in a business venture for them.
They've shown, while they've run Leeds United, that they can work within financial fair play in football over in the UK. and they've set the club up well. Considering I know a lot about Leeds United, that their Leeds, as you said, in the past had been mismanaged. Are there any practices you could see them replicate over here with Rangers that, given the difficult financial results that we've had recently?
Yeah, I would say that it's not necessarily a quick fix. It's not like throwing all kinds of money at the problem and looking for a solution that way. It's going to be more of how can they get better both on the field and um, in the financial departments now, but also building so that it's sustainable. Don't make any decision, don't make any investment today that's going to hurt the team down the road. So I'm sure they're going to look at all kinds of different things of thinking outside the box of ways that whether through analytics, player acquisition, valuing certain things. And I can't speak specifically on uh, the football side of it as far as what they're looking for from a player standpoint, but there are characteristics, there are traits that they value in players that maybe they feel are undervalued around the rest of football. So it's looking at it from a lot of different ways. First and foremost, it's improving the product on the field, but then it's also improving the experience for the fans. It's whether it's a change of culture of just how the fan base recognizes the team. Maybe it's improving. Well, I'll give you an example. Ellen Road in Leeds is kind of an iconic stadium, but the 49ers investment arm, Prague Marathe, Jed York, the owner, they came in and they saw opportunities to renovate, to make that experience better. They were very much aware and respectful of the traditions there. And so they wanted to improve the fan experience, modernize the stadium without tearing away from the traditions. So kind of having that respect for the past while also trying to update and modernize for the future. That's I know that was a an area where they tried to hone in on with Leeds United.
See, in terms of Rangers have, I'm kind of picking at what you said about the product on the park and being successful, and Rangers pretty much play in what's a two-team football league between us and Celtic that compete for the title every season. In order to get the Champions League football, where the biggest revenue for the club would be, Rangers would need to win the league most seasons. Do you see that being a kind of bare minimum expectation that Parag, Marath, and the consortium could meet? Do you think they would be quite happy to go ahead and meet that?
Of competing and beating Celtics. Yeah, I mean, I think that they're going to look at models that they can take advantage of. Wherever those margins are, that's where they're going to try to get better. And it's a fresh set of eyes looking at what the problems have been and finding ways to not repeat those issues. And it's looking at the team. It's looking at the off the field situation. Building something there where players will want to play, where players will want to go to Rangers and stay there. And so that's part of it. And it took them a while with the 49ers to kind of figure out how they wanted to get there, treating their players the right way, treating the families of the players the right way. It's just finding from the football side of it, the coaches, the executives, everybody kind of working together and moving in the right direction. And I think that they like the idea of being the ones that um, that can kind of help the supporters of the team. Like if the supporters of the team feel like their voice isn't being heard, or the product on the field hasn't been as engaging and as competitive as they've been, I think they like the idea of coming in and setting a new standard and raising expectations. So all that, I think they feel like they're working from an extremely beneficial place, in the sense that it's been done there before. There has been a lot of success. And so take the stuff that's worked in the past and kind of angle it in a way where it can be successful in the future, and trying out new ideas and kind of learning from the mistakes. And I think they see this as a tremendous opportunity. The one thing I would say is they're, being around Prague Marate, he's a very passionate guy. And last year, 2 years ago, when Leeds was still in the Premier League, I watched a game with him, and it's a game that started at 5 a.m. our time here, and so he's up and pacing, and he's walking around. They'll go to a lot of games, but in this particular game is during football season, so the 49ers were playing the next day. I mean, his hands are sweating. He's pacing around. He's yelling at the TV. And I asked him about that, and he said, make no mistake, just because I'm here and just because, I've been known as someone who's run the 49ers or helped run the 49ers, the passion is every bit as much watching a Leeds United game as it is watching a 49ers game. So I think you're going to see the same passion if everything goes through. And I think things are a little bit premature, but it appears to be heading in that direction. I think you'll see the same passion that they would show for Rangers as they show for the 49ers and for Leeds United.
You said you were sitting watching a Leeds United match with Parag Marathi. Can you tell me a wee bit about the man? What's he like?
Well, I mean, it was a watch party in the Bay Area. There's a lot of Leeds United fans in the Bay Area, and I think they were here before the 49ers involvement. And I know there's a lot of Rangers fans in the Bay Area. So there was a situation. This was before the 49ers took complete control of that organization. But it was kind of a festive time. We were having breakfast because it was so early in the morning. But I was scheduled to do some interviews with him, but those interviews had to wait until after the match was over, because he was so wound up watching the team play. And he's, like I said, man, he's yelling at the officiating, and at one point, he looked over at me, and granted, Scott, I don't know a whole lot about soccer, but he looked over at me and he goes, "What do you think of that call? Shouldn't that have been a?" I'm like, I really don't know, but they're into it, and so I think that they'll be out there quite a bit if it goes through, and there'll be a commitment made, because let's face it, any financial investment made is tied to the Rangers doing well. And
Yeah,
so that is a huge part of it, is that, you're not going to make an investment. You're not going to, take over ownership of something where you don't think you can succeed. So I'm sure they've looked at the books. I'm sure they've studied everything about that organization, and they believe that they can help turn this thing into a consistent, dominant winner.
yeah, yeah, definitely. I would need to agree. In terms of just heading back to Rangers again, you say that the deal might be a wee bit premature just now. As in terms of how far the deal is on, it's been reported over here by Sky Sports News that there's been an agreement made in principle, and we're now at the kind of due diligence stage of the deal. If it is successful and it goes through, do you think that the 49ers enterprises would come in and give some fresh investment to help the playing squad? Because this is a playing squad that's very young. There's some players in it that are a wee bit dated, a wee bit older. The quality's not good enough to compete with Celtic just now. Do you think that that would be something that they would look to do right away, is improving the quality of player on the pitch?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you have to make difficult decisions when it comes to players, and I think it is easier for a new group coming in to look at it with fresh eyes. And if there are some players who maybe aren't what they used to be, um, it might be easier for them to make those difficult decisions because they don't have the history. I think they'll be very aware of public perception, but also they realize that what the fan base might want isn't necessarily what's best for the long-term health of the team. So um, I think they'll look at it from a very strategic standpoint
Right.
of looking at cost, um, upside a player, whether that player is on the rise or if that player's on the downturn. And I just know, watching how they work with the 49ers, you know, they they they're strategic in how they pay players, from the standpoint of there's always that balancing act of,
Right.
yeah, we can go get this top player, we can pay him this, but is it going to is it something that's going to push you over the top, or is it something that's going to maybe negatively impact you for the future? So those are all the decisions that will be made and have to be made when that time comes.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. See, in recent years, there's been some work done to the stadium. It's called Ibrox. There's been some work done in terms of expanding it, and it needs more than a lick of paint. It needs tidied up quite a bit. In the surrounding area, Rangers have built a museum, and there's a building called Edmondson House recently that's got like the club shop, and it's got a hall for functions and things like that. Do you think that, one, the 49ers would look to expand and improve the matchday experience like they've done at Leeds?
Uh,
And two, do you think the surrounding area would get a wee bit of work done to it as well?
I would think so. Yeah, I would think that that's a huge part of the fan experience, and that's something that they would definitely look into. Um, and what I know from the Leeds model is that they didn't want to do anything that would alienate the fan base. They don't want to take the character and the charm away from that home stadium where what generations of football fans that have been going to, and that's part of the fabric of that community. So I think they would really want to embrace the history while also modernizing, being more attractive to the younger fans, making the game day experience maybe more inclusive. And so, yeah, I do think that, and I think that's kind of a strength of theirs, is that they can kind of figure out a good way to modernize things without stripping away at that rich tradition.
Everything you're saying in terms of, you keep saying tradition, and everything you're saying, that's really, really important to Rangers fans. It's really important that we've got a winning team on the football park. It's not something we've had in recent years. We've not had much success in recent years. So in terms of everything you're telling me, it's reassuring that they would be coming in to look at it through fresh eyes, do the best for the club, but also maximise their investment.
Scott, I think that that's why this is a situation that is attractive to them, because they've been through it before. And this is kind of their, you know, I think this is what they do. And, after the news broke about the 49ers involvement, and that they were kind of zeroing in on Rangers, I did reach out to, some high ranking people with the 49ers, and I said, hey, this is my take on it. You guys see this as kind of the next in line: 49ers, Leeds, Rangers. And what came back to me was, you're 100% correct. That's exactly what they view this as. So I think that the lessons that they learned from their time at the 49ers, trying to get it right, to flip it, the lessons they've learned through 2 or 3 or 4 years with Leeds, I think all that stuff is applicable and can be applied to the Rangers. So I think that that's the reason that they've zeroed in on this situation. They're catching the franchise not in the glory days, not when everything's going great, but the idea of kind of being the spark that turns it around
Aye.
and having it as a wise financial decision as well. I think that's the only reason the 49ers investment arm is looking at that possibility.
Aye, definitely. In terms of leads, there's links with Red Bull. Is there a link between 49ers and Red Bull currently? Like, do they work together? Is there a mutual business interest or anything? Is it something that we could expect coming into Rangers as well?
You're talking about the 49ers and Leeds?
And
And
Red Bull, the sponsor.
I don't know. I don't know the specifics on that. I wouldn't be able to speak on that. Um, what I've been kind of surprised at as we're talking about the links between the 49ers and say Leeds
Mm-hmm.
is there hasn't been a lot of crossover. There's the one event I was talking to you when I was with Prague Marate and we watched the Leeds game together. But I think there is room for cross promotion. Maybe trying to attract more Rangers fans out of the 49ers fan base and maybe vice versa, like trying to make Leeds fans and Rangers fans more gravitating toward the 49ers. So there are those possibilities and certainly those investment opportunities or those areas to kind of expand the partnerships. I think that's something that they would probably look toward more in the future.
If they are successful with Rangers, then Rangers fans will buy their merch. I can guarantee you that. I can guarantee you. If Rangers fans are in love with the 49ers, we'll be seeing a lot of San Francisco stuff over here. So
yeah, and I know that's something the NFL obviously has played a lot of games. They're in Europe. The 49ers have been to London a couple of times. They're trying to kind of branch out internationally. So, I think there is a way for them, and they haven't like gone all in on that. But I think over time, kind of a slow build of increasing their international fan base. And I mean, I don't think that that's the main goal of why they'd be interested, why they bought Leeds United, why they're interested in the Rangers. And it sounds like things are moving in a very positive direction there. I don't think that's the main goal, but I do think that, their long-term strategy would have to include kind of that, intertwining or at least cross promotion of those sports teams.
have since Parag Marathi's consortium like bought into the NFL, have they had good success?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as far as I think they feel like things have been moving, in a positive direction, or else I don't think, if they felt like it wasn't worth their while, they wouldn't be connected to Rangers in the way they are. So,
Yeah.
no, I think it's been successful. There's no indication it hasn't been. Currently Leeds is not in the Premier League, but it certainly looks like they'll be back there next year. So, they did drop out of Premier League a couple of years ago, and that was a crushing blow to them.
Mhm.
And so, I think that they feel like probably the experiences, the um, the positives and the negatives that they've experienced managing Leeds United, all those experiences can be applied to Rangers so that, if they look back on it and they go, well, that was a mistake we made, we shouldn't have done that, then Rangers will be better off because of it. Because in essence, they've gained experience through their experience with Leeds that maybe the Rangers can benefit from.
The one thing that's being how do I put this? The one thing that's the ill feeling between the current Rangers board and the Rangers fans just now is that the communication with the supporters hasn't been good under the current board.
Mhm.
We've got a chief executive officer called Patrick Stewart just now, And I think since he's came in, he started the job 3 months ago. And I think since he's come in, he's had a wee bit of an eye opener because things weren't really working on the park, expectations weren't getting met. And if we don't get communication from the club, the Rangers fans don't really take kindly to it. Would there be an improvement upon the communication if the takeover goes through, do you think?
Boy, I would think so. I think that they're very aware, especially coming from, San
Aye,
Francisco,
aye,
that they'll be seen as the outsiders and they'll be seen as, why are they doing this? There's going to be a healthy amount of skepticism from
yeah,
Rangers supporters about what the San Francisco 49ers are doing running our team. Therefore, I think the 49ers have to really prove themselves to the fan base. The last thing they want is for people to be upset or skeptical or cynical about what the 49ers, what they're trying to get out of this. So I think they're going to be very, uh, I think they'll have an open ear to the fans. I think they'll want to prove themselves that they're in it for the right reasons. And part of that too is just the communication between the outreach between the team, between the organization and the community. So I would think, I mean, I know these people pretty well and I know how they think. And I know that they want their fan base to be loyal. I think they want their fan base to be happy. Not everything they do is going to be met with approval from the supporters. But I think going in, they know that they have to prove themselves to the supporters of Rangers. So, yeah, I would think that the communication and everything else would be improved over what you're describing right now.
if you look at football over here, big teams like Arsenal, they've got the Emirates Stadium. If you look at Manchester City, they've got the Etihad Stadium. Do you think that's something that the 49ers would look to do to maximise the income to the club, is do a potential name change on the stadium? I know they looked at it with Leeds, and Leeds fans were against it, and 49ers respected their wishes. Would that be an outlook they would look?
They would have to do some research on that to see if that makes sense. Um, you know, the traditions, what that name means to the supporters of the club. I don't think that they would just make that decision if it was going to be met with a lot of outcry. So,
Yeah,
they'll try to maximize it. They'll sponsorships inside the stadium, outside the stadium, but as far as the naming rights to the stadium, it would have to be. And I'm not, you know, up to date as
yeah,
far as what the fan base thinks about any moves they would make, but I'm sure that they would run it through, some support groups and
yeah.
figure out or some, figure out how that would be received. And then it would have to be, well, does it make it okay? With the additional revenue coming in, does that will that help the football club? And so those are the kind of things that they'd have to weigh. And I'm sure, I mean, I'm 100% certain that they've done this research and that
Yeah,
is already started as far as what they can and can't get away with.
yeah. It's it's interesting because I think with the way the club is just now and the way the fans are feeling, I don't think there would be a big outcry about it, if
Mhm.
that makes any sense. There would
Yeah.
be maybe mumblings about it, but I don't think there would be like protests outside the stadium and all
It-
that.
yeah,
Kind
and my guess would be that if that's what they determine, that they would have to paint that picture of, hey, this is why we're doing it, and this is how it's going to improve, you know,
well, like,
the team. So uh, I don't think they would just do anything of that nature, anything significant, without fully explaining why it's being done and what kind of impact it's going to have for the future.
that is all we've wanted as a fan base for the last
Mm.
Christ. I couldn't. 20 years is that level of communication. It's something that we haven't had and we've been starved of. So if they come in with that attitude and openness, then they would be more than welcome.
Yeah, and Scott, I would say if you're telling me this, that's got to be something that the 49ers know already. That's a level. I'm sure they've done the research. They've talked to enough people. They know strengths and weaknesses of the organization they're walking into, and so I'd be really surprised if what you're saying, if they see that as an opportunity to like, hey, we can make strides in this area. I would be shocked if they did not recognize that and have solutions to solve that.
Yeah, definitely. It would make the fan base feel an awful lot better if that kind of fresh approach was to come in the openness and the clarity and just the communication in general, because it's something we've not had in such a long time, and the fan base is really, really craving for in an owner. Just one last question, Matt. See the man that's at the front of the or working alongside Parag Marathi is Andrew Kavanagh. Do you know anything about him?
Can you repeat that about Prague?
There's a man supposedly working within the takeover next to Parag Marathi. It's Andrew Kavanagh.
I know Parag very well. I know what he brings to the table, the passion. He's a smart guy. He's one of the brightest people I know. I don't know what the rest of the structure of that organization would look like, as far as who would be coming in with him and what their roles would be. But it would be my understanding that Prague would be the man in charge. He wouldn't be necessarily in charge of the day-to-day operations, but he would be the one that would kind of formulate the plan and the structure of everything and how it would look moving forward. So I can't really speak to who would be working there, who'd be there 12 months a year working on things, but I do know that Prague would ultimately be the one who develops the structure for the organization.
Right, well, Matt, thank you for coming on. That was very informative, and I'm sure you've reassured anybody within the Rangers support with any apprehensions about the potential takeover. So thank you for coming on.
All right, Scott. Yeah, I would say that if things aren't going well, that the 49ers goal would be to make things better in connecting to the community, and maybe not a quick fix this year, next year, or whenever, but their goal would be to just maintain a level of consistency and return the Rangers over time to the traditions and the glory they experienced in the past.
No, well, that would be more than welcome. It'd be more than welcome. So, do you want to give your work a wee plug? Do you do any podcasts or anything like that? Where can the Rangers fans find you?
Yeah, so I cover the San Francisco 49ers year-round. I'm at NBCSportsBayArea.com. I have a YouTube channel, Matt Mayocco, NFL, M-A-T-T. Last name is M-A-I-O-C-C-O, NFL. And so my job is to cover the 49ers, and I've done it for quite some time, and podcasts, 49ers talk. So, yeah, I'm basically all 49ers all the time, but I'm also keeping an eye on Leeds, and I certainly will keep an eye on Rangers if that, in fact, does go through like we all expected will.
Right, well, that's magic, Matt. Thank you for coming on.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Appreciate you having me.
This was brought to you with offtothematchigo.co.uk. They are our podcast sponsor, so please head on over to the website, offtothematchigo.co.uk. Use the QR code or the promo code Journal10, and that will get you 10% off anything you wish to purchase. Take care. Cheers.